is Larry DeMarco from Century 21 Modern Realty Results. Larry, how's your back this morning?
My back's fine, Rob.
You're going to have to leave the room. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm the only healthy one here.
Yeah, good to see you again. Thanks for coming in.
Sure. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah. We are in the summer season, which is traditionally a good season for the real estate market. And if you're looking to buy a house, sell a house, or whatever, how are we looking this summer, Larry? Is it figured to be a busy year?
It has been. I think it picked up probably maybe 45, 60 days ago. We've been very busy. Seems to be a lot of inventory out there right now. It's more of a buyer's market currently.
First time in a while, right?
Well, it is, and most of the inventory that I speak of that has an increase in increase is probably over 450 to 500. Yeah.
Yeah, which is just about every 4-bedroom home these days, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Are the values throughout the county fairly consistent, or is there east, west, south, or north right now that are getting better appreciation?
You know, you always have falling waters. It's going to be the hot area simply because it's commuter friendly. It's closer to the Maryland line. But I think consistently throughout the county, everything's going pretty rapid.
Fairly uniform?
Yes.
And in regards to interest rates, have we accepted the fact that we're not going to get 2.75% interest on a mortgage any longer and moved on?
I think buyers have accepted that, and they're sort of embracing what's out there. They're using FHA and some government-sponsored loans. Some of my buyers are doing the short-term ARMs, 5 years, 10 years, things of that nature.
And you use those for what purpose?
For the ARMs, there's so many reasons, but we have a lot of teachers and police officers, to name 2 occupations, where they feel that their pay may increase within 5 years. At that point, they can refinance, and then you have other homeowners that are looking at the future, thinking they're going to either upgrade within 5 years or sell. So the ARMs are perfect for them.
You get a lower rate early on with an ARM?
You do. You get definitely a lower rate. It's easier terms, and chances are it's just a better product for a lot of people. And it's not the ARMs that we remember from the 70s and maybe the early 80s. There's cap on these ARMs. And I think over the life of the loan, it can't go up higher than 4%, 2% at any time. But need somebody from CNB or City National to talk about that.
Get more into that sort of thing.
That's right, yeah.
Right. And what are the houses price point-wise that are selling the fastest?
Well, anything under $350, pretty much they're just as quick as you put it on the market, they go.
Yeah. What can you get for $350?
Typically, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, split foyer rancher, probably quarter-acre lot, something like that, a tract home. Every once in a while, you can get maybe if you go a little further west, you can get a little bit more land. If
you want to go 4 bedrooms, are you automatically at 4 or more?
Not automatically, but a lot of times I'd say percentage-wise, yes, you're going to be over 4.
Bill?
Yeah. Larry, the homes on the market, are they new homes or used homes or equally split?
No, I'd say they're probably equally split. The builders certainly haven't slowed down, in my opinion, and there's some things we could talk about concerning that later. A lot of the resale market is saturated above 500,000 simply because people were accustomed to the prices from 2020 to 24. Now, when you list a home, you'll see that the sellers put more thought into that and have made their price adjustments before even putting it on the market. So the inventory has increased.
Yeah, I realize it only applies to new homes, but the impact fees, there's a lot of interest now or discussion about impact fees. Do you anticipate that's going to have an effect on the market either one way or the other?
I really don't know, Bill. I do know that the county commission has a hearing, I think, on June 17th.
17th, that's right.
Yes, it's open to the public, and there's 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. I do encourage people to go to that, to attend if possible.
Well, is there pushback really against impact fees? I know going back a few years or so ago when the water and sewer were put in their consumer, I forgot what the term of it was. There's an embracing by the developers that this is going to be something we needed. Are we seeing the same thing with impact fees or not?
Boy, this is like talking religion or politics.
Okay.
I'm going to go out on a limb. In my opinion, I think there should have happened 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It could be too little, too late. I'm not sure. I would embrace it because, I mean, if you look at our infrastructure, it's pretty obvious. We don't have it. We don't have the roads, the schools, and it goes on and on. So this county is really suffering because of the overabundance of the construction.
And the way it's been done, it's been diffused among several different people, and there is a surtax to be sure, $2,000 or $3,000. But that's something that, if we're talking about a $400,000 home, that can be absorbed fairly easily.
It sure can.
Yeah.
Yes. People move to West Virginia for many reasons. Unfortunately, one of the reasons is because it's cheaper, and I say unfortunately, because they wow, how can I put this politely? They saturate the area without paying the price, so to speak. And that's something that's very sad because it's a beautiful county and we see so much construction without, like I said earlier, without the infrastructure. But I personally would like to see the impact fees. A lot of my listeners would disagree with me, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned you've been in the market for, been in business for several years.
How many exactly, Larry?
29 this year.
29.
Yes.
What trend have you seen over that period of time? I'm not talking about the kind of on the edges, but substantive changes in the market and the way you do business today and what you would have done 30 years ago.
Oh, the way I do business?
Yeah, or you and your colleagues.
Yeah, well, I mean, I came into this, I think, 95, 96, and, you had a book that was the Bible that was in the office. Consumers didn't have access to the information like they do now. I was talking to Rob just a few minutes ago. Most consumers have the same access that I do, and I think my role as a real estate agent has certainly changed to the point where I get paid for consulting, negotiating, and assisting. I don't care how much is out there on AI or Google. If I look at you and ask you how many homes you bought and sold last year, you might say one. I can say I was part of 200 transactions. So I know that I can bring something to the table that's going to really help you with the process and probably save you money.
But you mentioned AI, mentioned the availability of it. Do you get a pushback from some folks, and I suspect you do from some folks, do you get a pushback from a lot of folks that said, why do I need you?
Well,
I
sure.
can gather all the information myself.
Well, a lot of people can paint their house, and you can see the difference between a homeowner painting their house and a professional. It depends on what you want. Yes, you can sell your house yourself. I see it all the time. I also see some very, very expensive mistakes that can cost a client either money or possibly get them into maybe some sort of legal action if they're not careful.
What are some of the common mistakes that individuals will make trying to sell the house themselves or buy a house themselves?
Boy, these are tough questions, Bill.
Yeah.
I think most people that sell their house themselves probably overprice it, don't they?
Well, they overprice and they don't truly saturate the market. Everybody knows someone that wants to buy a house. And Rob, if you were selling a house and you said you had a friend that wanted to buy it, I'd say congratulations. But if you put it on the market and test the waters, you'll see that you'll have thousands of people looking at your house, probably competing for it. That's going to give you maybe better terms, a better price, things of that nature. So I think that's probably the most common mistake. They either net a lot less, or like you said, they overprice it and it sits there.
Yeah, what's the downside of overpricing the house and it sitting there a long time? Why is that a bad thing?
This is something I routinely I tell my sellers. It's okay to try for the higher price, maybe for a week or two, but you should make your adjustment after that. Too long on the market's going to be a bad reflection on the house, and most buyers would think there's something wrong with it if it's on the market for 3 or 4 weeks. The average list time right now is 32 days, which is kind of a long time compared to what we went through a year or two ago.
But still historically short, isn't it?
Historically, it's very short. When I came into it, like I said, back in 95, I think the average list time was 9 months.
Yeah.
And we were doing 9-month listing terms. Yeah.
Larry, is the greatest challenge for someone that is not a professional like you, is the greatest challenge the selling or buying?
Bill, that's equal. I see. I mean, it can go smoothly. But the odds are either side. It can be very costly. Buyers don't have the knowledge, and there's certain demographics that we know about. Like if we go into a neighborhood, I can look at my buyer and say this has good resale, this has bad resale. I've got all the history, and I've done it for 29 years. And most agents, even the newer agents, have supporting team members such as myself that can answer questions like that. That chances are most buyers cannot. And then on the selling side, it's obvious what we just talked about, some of the mistakes that are made.
Where are the new developments going right now, Larry? I understand that there's been approval given for a couple that are ultimately going to be over 1,000 units.
Yes. I think out on close to where I live, I live in Honeywood myself, and I think to get to Honeywood, we're going to be passing a lot of new subdivisions.
Is 11 going to become like 9?
Is 11 going to be like 9? I kind of wish 9 was like 11 some days. Yeah, they're both pretty tough, aren't they? Yeah.
Yes, but if those developments go in, will that effectively make Route 11 the same as Route 9 traffic-wise?
I don't know. We have 81 that parallels Route 11, so I'm not too sure.
A good point.
Yeah.
Now, the new homes going in, these large subdivisions, they're on public water, public sewer?
They are,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
We've talked about in the past zoning, and I think the water and sewer, the availability of water and sewer, are in effect playing the role of zoning.
Yes.
Because there's no way to really get, with these size developments, you have to be on public water, public sewer.
Right. Well, and one thing as I understand it, and I'm sure you know tons more than I do about this, Bill, but in falling waters, the public water comes out of the Potomac River. So that's more or less an indefinite amount. Now on the sewer side, that could be a challenge.
Yeah, well, sewer historically has not been a challenge.
Okay.
It's the water that's a challenge, both availability and quality and quantity.
Gotcha.
And you're right, the northern part of the county does come out of the Potomac, but with the distribution lines, Potomac waters also going to the southern part of the county, which has been augmented though by wells and by springs. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Are you staging homes, Larry, to get them sold, or is that not even necessary because there's enough people looking to buy a house?
The funny thing is my team just started using virtual staging, and it's an easy way to put furniture in a house without dragging it in and out. But yes, that's important for someone to look at a room and be able to tell how they're going to place their furniture.
If I want to sell my house, do I have to do much work to get it to be sellable in this market?
Invite me out. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I'm talking about the generic house that somebody wants to sell.
Typically speaking, you want to make sure that, for the prices that people are paying today, they don't want to come in there with a hammer and a saw. It's if they want that, they'll buy a foreclosure or something to that effect. Yes, the competition's pretty great. As I said, the inventory is higher. Probably 2 or 3 years ago, you could get by with a whole lot more of not doing, because the inventory was low and people would just buy because the availability was so minimal. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Of the people that are moving, that are buying homes in the area, are most of them from outside the area?
It depends. Falling waters, yes. I would say probably more than half of the people. The rest of the county, and I'm just guessing, I don't have the stats, but I feel like it's probably a healthy mixture.
Where are they coming from?
Well, South Berkeley, that's going to be Northern Virginia typically, and maybe Frederick County, Virginia. On the north side, Falling Waters, you get them, from Hagerstown all the way down to Frederick and Baltimore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cycle from the time you look, someone contacts you and say, I want to buy a house, I'm moving to the area. Mm-hmm. Typically, how long is that cycle until they end up moving in? From the time they start to look till the time they move in?
There again, a lot of my clients come to me. They know the inventory a lot better than I do because they've condensed it to what their needs are. So I'd say probably once we start looking, maybe just a couple weeks, a buyer will identify the house they want to purchase. From that point to get through the inspections and the appraisal process, you're looking from 30 to 45 days. So I'd say maybe 60 days from start to finish.
With the availability of information, AI and the like, do you find a lot of the buyers coming in more cognizant of what they can afford? That used to be a problem a few years or so ago. Somebody come in starry-eyed. Mm-hmm. They think they're going to get a massive home. They realize they cannot afford it. Do you still find that to a large degree today?
Not so much. I mean, between going on the internet and lenders, I mean, you can call any of the local lenders and have your answers within 5 to 10 minutes. It's so easy to be qualified. But yes, they come in, they have the information with them for the most part.
Are people trading up? Are we selling homes that had 3% interest and buying new ones that have 6 or 7?
Not so much. No. A lot of people are holding on to them. Especially in that lower end market when you get 350 and below. Yeah.
So if they're not trading up,
Mm-hmm.
is then most of the rest of the business in the county people moving in and first time home buyers?
I'd say so. We have a lot of first time home buyers that really don't know the difference. And I think it took a couple years for those buyers to come forth, and they don't understand what a 2.75 or 3%. So they're not really spoiled. The ones that have bought, such as, well, and I remember back in the day when we had 13, 14%.
I do too, yeah.
And I told this last time I was here, I was jealous because my neighbor had 13%.
Yeah.
I was like, how'd you get that?
How'd you get 13? My first was 10.5.
Yeah, right. And you were probably very happy with it at the time.
My cousin was paying 18 the first house he bought.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, but a lot of first-time home buyers, I mean, I think we're through that cycle, and they understand, 6% is not that bad. In 96, when it dropped, or maybe 97, when it went down to 7%, I thought, my goodness, we'll never see better than this.
Right.
Yeah,
We all got surprised
we sure did.
as they kept dropping. It was pleasant. It was great for the refi market.
Yeah.
Right.
For every action, there's a reaction,
Yeah.
I guess, right?
So what's the future of your business, Larry? I know there was a big court ruling about commission rates, and now there's the information with artificial intelligence. I heard a report this morning that said within a year there could be massive unemployment because of how fast AI is developing. That we could have massive unemployment in the country. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
For a second, because there's got to be somebody working to buy the products that AI is helping everybody pump out.
That's right.
But nevertheless, that's what they're saying. What's it going to do to your business and all the other changes?
I think, like I said, I think our roles are changing. We get paid for negotiating and consulting and things of that nature. As far as the commissions, everything's the same as it ever has been. It's just broken down differently. The seller pays the listing agent, and then the buyer has a contract with the buyer's agent for X amount of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And then typically what we've seen almost 100% of the time, that's factored into the sales contract where the buyer would ask for some relief of that compensation.
The buyer's agent, I think, has been the best development in the real estate field from this perspective. I think it clears up a lot of confusion. When I was buying my first house, both my agent representing me and the agent representing the person selling the house had a fiduciary responsibility to the person selling the house. So as I went to sell my first house, and they're trying to tell me that the person negotiating with me saying the buyer wants you to lower the price, and I'm looking at that person saying, I thought you had a fiduciary interest in me, not them.
That's right.
But you're walking in with them, and you don't know me, and you know them. So this, to me, didn't seem like a fair relationship.
Right.
When I now know the buyer's agent is representing the buyer, I understand the relationship better, and I trust it better, Larry.
And that's probably been years ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
Rob? Yeah. Yeah, you definitely should have representation. Even as a dual agent, I mean, they're representing both parties. Their responsibility is to be honest and ethical with both, which you should be. And I don't know why you have to have that in writing, but yes. Yeah, those days are long gone, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a feeling.
But what's the difference between what you said a second ago? Your role is now more negotiating and representing, and what Rob just mentioned his scenario. What's the subtle difference between the two?
You mean from? Well, I mean,
Yeah, Rob,
everybody worked for the seller back then. The seller paid the commissions, and I think that had some impact on this lawsuit that went down August a year and a half ago, something like that. I don't think it was clear who was being paid, who was being represented. It's so, I mean, I don't know what happened nationwide. Locally, we've always used contracts where the seller, when they would list their house, they understood if they were paying X amount of dollars, how that was split between the buyer's agent and the listing agent. It was very clear. But apparently it wasn't clear to everybody. So as a result of that, the representation, we have an agency relationship that the state commission requires. When you sign that, you know who everybody's working for. And I think that's got to be very clear. When you get into the compensation of it, that's where it got to be a little bit confusing, because it appeared on paper that the seller was paying the compensation. And I don't think the seller's ever paid the compensation, because really, if you want $100 for your house, you're going to ask $105. Guess who's paying the $105? That's going to be the buyer.
Yeah.
But regardless how that works out. So now, if you were my buyer, Bill, and you may be someday, who knows, right? But we would have a contract saying you're going to pay me X amount of dollars. And then you're going to say, Larry, I don't really have that money. I would say, Bill, we can ask for it in the contract. Should the seller not decide that they're going to pay that compensation, you have a choice. You either come up with the money, or we have to identify a house in which the seller would cooperate, which is no different from closing cost assistance or repairs or anything of that nature.
Larry, about a minute left.
Yeah.
Any final advice you can give to our audience, and then tell them how they can get in touch with you?
Really no advice. I mean, just take things slow, be careful with your decisions, try to get people involved that you trust, and hire an agent.
How can they get in touch with you?
Just Google me, Larry DeMarco, and I should come up. I'm right here on Hess and Queen Street in town, Century 21.
You have fulfilled my obligation to have at least one additional Italian on every show with me, so that's cool. We worked that out. How's the back? Still holding up?
My back?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's doing fine.
Oh, you leave here as the healthy person in the room, Larry.
Right.
That's not a bad way to go out, right? Larry DeMarco at Larry DeMarco and Company at Century 21 Modern Realty Results. Always good to catch up with Larry. Great to have him in the studio, too.